Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our third Sharing Leading Practice event of the summer term. For those of you who have not attended a Sharing Leading Practice event before, they were formerly known as our Leadership Development Days, where schools with an accredited area of excellence share their best practice. A big positive for them now being virtual is that we're able to share them across the length and the breadth of the country. I hope lots of you are looking forward to thinking about something other than COVID this afternoon, and so we're really glad that you're able to join us. We're very excited to have Emma Hawes, CPD lead at St John's and the head of the Excalibur Teaching School, and Sarah Wilson, vice principal from St John's School, with us today. St John's School is part of the Wootton Bassett Hub. Now, before I hand over to Emma and Sarah, who will be talking about how they have developed their CPD programme, I just wanted to go over a few of our housekeeping rules. Thank you to those of you who have already introduced yourself in the chat function. If you haven't done so already, please do so by saying what school you are from and if there's anything you'd like to get out of the session today. There will be time throughout the presentation for questions, and I believe Emma and Sarah have factored in time for a Q&A session towards the end of the session, as well as breakout groups. Please do put any thoughts or comments in the chat for the wider group as we go along. If you could please also remain muted during the presentation, as it prevents any background noise. If you do want to unmute yourself, just hover over the little microphone icon on the bottom left-hand corner. I also suggest putting your screens on speaker view, which is found in the top right-hand corner if you haven't done so already. If you haven't already, could you please change your Zoom name to your first and last name, as it makes it much easier for us to record who has attended. Towards the end of the session, I will be posting a link to our feedback form, which would be great if you could please complete. Feedback is really valuable to us and helps guide future events. Finally, this session is being recorded, so if you do not want to feature, please do let us know. I will now stop sharing my screen and hand over to Emma and Sarah. Thank you both so much for leading today's session.
Thank you, Rebecca, and again, welcome everybody. My name's Emma Hawes. I'm the professional development lead at St John's School and also head of the Excalibur Teaching School Alliance. I'm really excited to be with you this afternoon and just share our journey and how we've developed our professional development programme.
And hi, I'm Sarah Wilson. I have the pleasure of working with Emma on a day-to-day basis. I'm Vice Principal at St John's, and my main role is teaching and learning.
Okay, just to cover the aims of the session this afternoon. So our aim will be that you'll learn about our journey to see how it's developed and all the opportunities that are available for our staff. You'll have an opportunity to hear from some of our newly qualified teachers, middle and senior leaders about their experience. Hopefully by the end of it, you'll understand the professional development role in the recruitment and retention of staff, and also reflect on how you might develop professional development in your own context.
Okay, so we're going to get started straight away. We want to give you the opportunity to have a quick talk amongst yourselves. So you're going to go out into a couple of breakout rooms. Could you introduce yourself very briefly, just your name, your school, and what role you have, and then have a talk about what the characteristics of great CPD are. Right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had a chance to have a brief chat. If we could perhaps start with some reflections about what makes great CPD from room 1. So I believe last alphabetically would be Mark.
Yeah, that's me. There's only 2 of us. So we've got a big list, actually. We thought it needs to promote collaboration, it needs to be motivating, it needs to be time effective, aligned with the school priorities, an element of choice, some feedback, professional feedback required within it somewhere. personal development as well as the whole school development. We thought most of it should be in-house, and it ought to be sustained and coherent. And that were the kind of key things.
All right, you got a good list there. You didn't waste a second of your 2 minutes.
No.
Excellent. So breakout room 2. Now, are you Mari? Am I pronouncing that right? Apologies if not.
It's Mari, yeah.
Mari.
I think possibly most of ours have been covered in Mark's list. We talked about drip feeding over time, so it's something you go back to. There's a chance for reflection, research informed, and that it meets the needs of the diversity within students and staff.
Lovely. And then to breakout room 4, Nikki.
Thank you. Again, most of ours have been taken, but we were talking about how it needs to be developing continuously and following staff as they kind of progress. Also about taking risks, being collaborative, being interactive. So quite similar.
Lovely. Well, it sounds like we've got some good coherence, as the word Mark used, going on already, which is great. I'm going to hand back now to Emma.
Okay, so we thought it'd be useful just to talk about our journey, where we came from and where we are now. So back in 2018, we had a programme where we had disaggregated our staff development days into twilights, which gave staff the opportunity to break up 3 days earlier at the end of term. It was a points-based CPD programme, so all staff were allocated points, and that related to hours. We had a full programme of professional development throughout the year. I think every week there was something going on. There were some compulsory sessions, but then an element of it was flexible. So staff could opt to do 2/3 teaching and learning sessions, and then a third would be allocated to wellbeing / social activities. And then staff would keep track of the sessions that they actually attended. There were some positives of this programme. Staff liked it. They felt that they had a lot of choice, and it was very flexible. It was inclusive in that all staff, all staff, support staff, were able to engage, and all the sessions were run by our staff as well. However, there were issues with it. So the focus was not on teaching and learning. So obviously there was a teaching and learning element, but it wasn't the main focus. And therefore the impact was questionable. There tended to be a focus on points, not professional development. And it was quite, staff found it confusing to calculate how many points and how many hours of CPD they actually had to do. It was quite admin intensive, so it required obviously, the programme and putting on the programme and staff booking sessions and then managing and communicating. Staff also got points for delivering a session, which had issues as well, because some staff wanted to put on so many sessions that they actually didn't attend any professional development themselves. It was difficult to follow up if staff didn't attend, and also, if staff didn't complete their numbers of required number of CPD hours or points by the end of the year. There wasn't really any follow up. So we had identified obviously these issues, and we decided to go back to basics and actually identify our philosophy and aims. So we are committed to supporting staff in their professional growth journey. we had committed to personal development being integral to the continuous improvement of the school, and how important professional development is. We had, committed to investing in staff and evaluating the impact of professional development. The aims of our programme are to offer evidence-based opportunities to ensure that classroom practice and teaching and learning remains of the highest quality, that it's sustained and collaborative, and it builds on internal and external expertise to promote good outcomes. So what we did is we went through a process of reflection, and that involved doing an audit or an evaluation of where we were. We asked staff for their feedback. We did some research and engaged with other schools to find out what they were doing. We also obviously looked at the EF toolkit and the work of the Teacher Development Trust. We engaged with research schools like the Huntington School and the Blue School, reviewed where we were against the DFE CPD standards, and how best to evaluate the impact of professional development, looking at the word of Guskey, Dylan William and Goodall. From that, we developed where we are now. So now our professional development programme is linked to our Academy Improvement Plan. It's aligned with our school improvement and pupil outcomes. It's got a definite teaching and learning focus with evidence-based professional development. It's much more higher profile. It's also based on the individual needs of our staff. It's sustained, so something that Mark said earlier on. It's sustained throughout our programme, but flexible enough to respond to the teaching, the changing needs of the school, as obviously we found in the last year. There's opportunities for subject-specific training, so for example, mastery in maths. Our staff development days are still disaggregated across the year, so we have a number of twilights across the year, and we've broken it down into themes, which we'll have a look at in a moment, and we're still able to finish 3 days early in the summer term, which is obviously very popular with our staff. So this is just to give you an overview of our professional development themes. I'm not going to read that out. I'm going to let you just have a look at it. So, and depending on our needs, our focus for the year, then the content will change. Our themes will change. Okay. Alongside our CPD programme, we also have a number of development opportunities for staff. So linking with the DFE's golden thread, we have a clear pathway of opportunities for professional development, starting with our teaching interns who are currently with us at the moment. We have 10 interns in maths and physics who are undergraduates and now are getting an experience of what it's really like to be a teacher. We're hoping that we'll be able to engage with those interns so that they will join our School Direct initial teacher training programme. And from that, successful completion of that, then we can support them in the early career framework. We are a lead partner with the Glenmore and Winton New Teaching School Hub in the delivery of the early career framework. For more experienced teachers, then we use our apprenticeship levy to offer apprenticeship opportunities, and for our leaders, We invest in professional qualifications, in senior leadership apprenticeships, secondments, and the opportunities for secondments, and also for work shadowing. Other opportunities for staff, they can be involved in leading twilight sessions. I talked about work shadowing and secondments, and we'll find out more about that when one of our leaders talks about her secondment, not just within our school, but to other schools in the trust as well. And staff have opportunities to manage projects and lead action research projects, as well as training as a specialist leader of education, and then deployment. In addition to that, there are opportunities to take part in the North Wilts Federation aspiring middle and senior leader programs. I mentioned the ECF earlier on. Obviously, we're part of Challenge Partners, so our staff have the opportunity to engage with the Alevi programs, with professional qualifications, and the trust. Excalibur Academies Trust offers training for middle and senior leaders, which differs because it is delivered by our existing middle and senior leaders. And obviously the apprenticeship opportunities for all staff at all levels. Support staff and teaching assistants are included in our obviously included in our development opportunities, and they're supported to undertake further training and opportunities. Staff have ownership of their own professional development activities, and that stems from the appraisal, but also opportunities to talk to the CPD lead on a one-to-one basis. And career development is openly discussed with middle and senior leaders where appropriate, and staff are supported to achieve national professional qualifications. Moving forward, we are going to be involved in the delivery of the new suite of professional qualifications. So collaboration is also a really important part of our programme. Staff are encouraged to work collaboratively and share good practice and participate in subject networks. We have a very proactive teaching and learning group with members from across all faculties. And that group meet regularly to increase awareness of strategies for outstanding teaching and learning. And each member of the group has a specific area of focus, for example, whole school literacy. And then there's a schedule of faculties contributing at Teach Meet sessions, which take place termly. And the aim is to share good practice and ideas and resources with colleagues. So staff have 2-3 minutes to share an idea, much like a Teach Meet. And we've had very positive feedback, and there's definitely been an evidence of impact in the classroom. And it's contributed to a culture of discussing and using effective teaching methods. Our delivery model focuses on identifying expertise within the school and the trust and beyond if appropriate. And we hear from a very wide range of voices, skilled practitioners from our schools, the senior leadership team, keynote speakers as appropriate, and the senior leadership team is very much involved in the development of the programme, and they actively participate. In terms of the impact, then obviously our programme is, as I mentioned earlier, linked to our Academy Improvement Plan. So it's aligned with school improvement and pupil outcomes. And improvements in pupil outcomes over the recent years, with 2019 results in the top 20% of schools nationally for both Key Stage 4 and 5. Alongside that, we evaluate our twilights, and staff are fully engaged in the range of development activities. And staff can explain how their practice has improved as a result. Learning walks identify areas of strength and areas requiring further development, which obviously allows our leaders to measure the impact of professional development on classroom practice and pupil outcomes and progress. And obviously that informs our professional development, whole school professional development moving forward. Professional development has a high profile, and it's been recognised, obviously, the impact on pupils' outcomes. And CPD is closely linked to obviously our appraisal system, and areas for development can feed into the CPD programme. All our staff participate, and they are given directed time to reflect and plan following the CPD. It's developed a culture of sharing good practice, and there's increased participation in teaching and learning briefings. And there's evidence of collaboration between faculties and also within the trust as well. So, and the programme is evaluated for impact, and I mentioned that staff have the opportunity to reflect and plan. Leaders assess the quality of impact, and an analysis of the evaluations following any kind of twilight are done by the CPD leader. And this, as I mentioned earlier, feeds into the planning process. We have developed a local reputation for effective professional and career development, and that has had a positive impact on the recruitment and retention of key staff, which has led to positive outcomes for our students. So I'm now going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to talk a little bit about teaching and learning. Oh.
Just before you get the opportunity to start having a think about what all of this might mean for you and your context, in terms of professional development now, with the theme of teaching and learning, we have a variety of key themes that run throughout the year and across years, but also there's place for those one-off events or one-off themes, but we always make sure that what we're developing and delivering is evidence-based, and as you heard from Emma, that was a change in sort of mindset for what was going on previously. Another key feature of the CPD that we deliver is things that come up regarding our Challenge Partners Quality Assurance Review. That gives us a big steer as to what we're doing well, but how we can improve even further. And it does involve a huge, really classroom staff at all levels, whether that's senior leadership teams being involved heavily with the QAR meetings, but going out to review other schools. The middle leaders, I always like to involve the middle leaders with the observations that go on with the external reviewers, but obviously classroom teachers and support staff that get the experience of having that external pair of eyes. We make sure we hear from many voices. It's always very powerful, I feel, if you can engage that member of staff that perhaps isn't necessarily the most enthusiastic person about getting stuck into CPD. If you can get them up talking in front of staff, it reaches a different audience. There are some members of staff that are always going to engage fully in what you're saying, but it does help reach those that are perhaps more skeptical or for a variety of different reasons aren't the most engaged in what you're doing. I think it helps to have a mix of duration. Some things lend themselves to a bigger chunk of time, and a snappier delivery is better. And we always take care to evaluate sessions, act on that feedback, but also ask for input for ideas about what staff would actually like to be covered in those sessions.
Thank you, Sarah. So we just wanted to really finish off by just briefly talking about the lessons that we've learned from the last 15 months and you know, where we go from here. So much like everybody, we've had to adapt over the last 15 months. We didn't stop our professional development program. We moved it online. We were very successful in actually running CPT on our remote learning tools, which had obviously a big impact during our periods of lockdown. It's evolved. Our program has evolved, and we found that actually staff have potentially had more opportunities available to them because of moving our program to a more remote program. Obviously, we've lost social connections. We've lost that ability to you know, meet at the end of the day and to discuss and to share good practice with a much wider audience. But we've recently asked staff what, you know, their feelings, their thoughts about the last 15 months in terms of professional development, and they are keen to have a mix of face-to-face and remote CPD. So we will be continuing to have an element of an remote CPD and have a blended approach moving forward. But you know, the challenge for us is making sure that our CPD, remote CPD, is effective and still has that impact. So we've done a lot of talking about our journey, and what we'd like to do now is give you an opportunity to complete a visioning exercise. So as part of the materials that you received from Challenge Partners, you will have received a document, a visioning document. So what we'd like you to do is in breakout rooms, so you can discuss if you find it appropriate, or if you'd rather just have a go at this individually. We want you to consider what differences you and your staff want a result of developing an evidence-based CPD programme. So think about what you'll see and hear that are different 2 years from now, which will indicate whether your changes have been successful. What kinds of things will pupils be saying more or less of? What kinds of things will teachers be doing more or less frequently? And how can CPD actually help with this vision? So we want you to think about teachers, leaders, pupils, and then other aspects, other areas where CPD professional development can have an impact. So managing the talent within your organisation, potentially relationships with parents as well. So we're going to have 5 minutes in breakout rooms, and then back just to share any ideas, any thoughts that you have after the visioning exercise. We don't expect you to have done it completely, but certainly made a start on it. So hopefully that gave you an opportunity to start to think about, what you'd like to see more of in the next couple of years in your context. I'm just going to ask for each group just to share an aspect or something that they that perhaps they discussed or that they got out of that visioning exercise. So we start with room 1. Jane, have we got Jane there to share something from room 1? No? Or Helen?
I can unmute. I didn't manage to speak to Jane, so
Okay.
but very useful reflection. One thing that I put for us is I want more teachers to be involved in delivering CPD within the school. To hear, like you said, hear those different voices within our own delivery and recognise the expertise that's there, rather than assuming it's all at the top of the school or elsewhere.
Yes, yeah. No, I mean, and we found that very successful. Sometimes, more people than we actually thought are willing to contribute to our twilight. So So yeah, okay. Room 2, Joe. You got Joe, or if not, Mark.
I think you mean Joy.
Was it Joy? Sorry. Sorry
she
about
does
that.
mean me, and Mark, you are more than welcome to chip in. We had a bit of a conversation about teachers being really willing to take feedback and see it as a really useful development tool. We talked about consistency. Mark's currently working very much on retention and retrieval, and to have that embedded in all lessons right across the school. I really want to see improved pedagogy for SEND students. And we're going to try unseen observations, which Mark and I then got into a little discussion about unseen observations on the basis that you're aiming actually to get the staff to develop their practice. We don't need to be making any judgments on it. And it's something I tried with trainees and it works brilliantly.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you for sharing that. And then finally, room 3. So Laura or Nikki.
Hi, sorry.
Hello again.
I think we crashed.
All right, Nikki, I don't know if you want me to add some points. On reflection, I thought about having the use of targeted CPD would help empower staff and improve their knowledge and understanding, which I think links a little bit to Helen and Joy's point about supporting a coaching model within the school and staff effectively reviewing on their own practice and reflection on other approaches as well. So we're looking at using a video project, which I've used in a previous school, to look at effective staff development, and also looking at the consistent approach of working in collaboration with parents to ensure what we're implementing at school is as best as possible implemented at home, so we're all on the same page and working in collaboration.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. We're getting some ideas here as well. So so it's really good to have your your thoughts on this. Okay, thank you. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to talk to you about actually reflecting on your current CPD model.
Lovely, thank you, Emma. Yes, really interesting to hear your thoughts and your vision, as it were, for your context. Now's a bit of an opportunity to just think about where you are right now in terms of your CPD and your model. And I know that Emma went through this visioning exercise and RAG rating process when you wanted and the school wanted to make changes, and it was really pivotal in terms of marking that moment in terms of moving forward. So have a think about where you are with your current situation, and we've provided you with a RAG rating, a red, amber, green document, so that you can RAG it against the CPD standards from the DFE. And once again, you'll be in breakout rooms just in case it's useful to discuss things as you're writing things down. But I appreciate some of you might just want to sort of get your head down and have a go at your own document yourself. So once again, 5 minutes, and we'll have some reflections at the end of it. So obviously, it's up to you how much you share, but it'd be interesting to hear your reflections about how you feel you meet those DFE criteria. I don't know if anyone wants to just unmute and talk about any of their reflections with where they are currently in their context.
Yeah, hi Sarah. We talked about this whole sort of evaluating the impact, and what we felt was if you went into your professional development journey with some very clear objectives, it was much easier to measure the impact at the end. But also this sort of need not to sort of double up on work, that if your objectives are aligned with the school development priorities, then effectively every time you do some QA work through the year, you're kind of gathering evidence. So you can get to the end of the year, have evaluated your CPD program, but done no kind of additional work. So kind of just aligning systems and processes that we felt makes life easier.
Yeah, I think that's a really important observation, and you used the word, I think, in your first bit about that coherence. And if you do have that coherence right through, it isn't necessarily any additional work. Yeah, a really good point, because you know, we're all busy, never more so than at the moment. So yeah, that's a really nice observation. Any other observations? Having a look at that sheet. So in terms of, you know, that prioritization of CPD, you know, is that something that's quite easy, or is that sometimes a bit of a battle to sort of devote the resources and the money towards that? Are you in organizations where that has already been won? Yeah, I can see Jane nodding there. Well, that's you know, half the battle, isn't it? If you've got organizations that already value that, then it can be a lot easier, and if you can also, you know, look for those quick wins in terms of, well, actually we don't need to do any more QA because it's already, you know, threaded through what we do and everything's aligning with the improvement plans and aspects like that, then it really can work. So what we've got now is we've got some sort of talking head videos of how various members of our staff have found our CPD. So this is, I suppose, a little bit of an insight into the impact that we've had with certain individuals whilst they've been at St John's. There should be a video coming up shortly.
So I joined St John's as a PGCE student, doing my PGCE through Schools Direct and accredited by Belfast University. I've come to teaching as a mature student. I had a refresher course for my maths. I did maths and further maths at A-level and part of an engineering degree. So I had a good solid grounding in it, but it was a bit rusty. So I did SKE to boost my maths, and then joined the PGCE, which was fabulous based at St John's. It meant that I was able to do it as a mum with 2 young children and a husband who works locally. It meant that I could actually get to everything I needed to get to, and it made it a possible career path for me to take. The bonuses of having done my PGCE training here were that I knew where my placement schools would be with plenty of advance warning, and that they would be fairly local, and that a lot of the professional development sessions were actually at St John's itself, which was very, very helpful indeed. From there, I applied for and was successful in getting a job in the maths department here. And had my NQT year undisturbed by any pandemics. Then in my RQT year, COVID of course hit during the middle of that last year. And at that time, there were also some the availability for roles within the department. And I applied for actually one of the key stage leader roles, alongside applying for the deputy head of department role, which is the one I ended up getting. And so I started that at the beginning of this year, which was my third year qualified. There's been loads of professional development throughout my time here, and being quite new to teaching still, I find it all very valuable. Any advice on behaviour within the classroom, or assessment for learning, or different techniques that we might use to support SEND students or PP students, particularly given these extraordinary times that we've had over the last year. All of it is just valuable. In addition to all of that normal CPD that goes on, I have undertaken a teaching A-level maths course through the AMSP, which is the Advanced Maths Support Programme. More recently, I am just finishing the Excalibur Academies Trust Middle Leaders Programme, which has run through this academic year with some sort of like amendments to the programme and the scheduling because of the different demands on our time, but completed nonetheless. That has been a real eye-opener. I think doing it alongside my role as Deputy Head of Department was really helpful. I do feel now like I'm in a much stronger position to be able to offer the most to that role, that I can identify what it is I want to do. Obviously, it all has to be part of the vision for the department and for the academy. But I think that I am more able to identify what needs to be done and how I might help in doing it.
Head of Year 13. Excalibur and St John's have been really supportive in aiding my career progression so far. I have taken part in the North Wiltshire Middle Leaders Programme. I've taken on subject-specific CPD from the EEF and have been involved in PGC mentoring over the years. I've undertaken action research projects on flipped learning as part of the school's exceptional practice programme. And more recently, I've been trying to embed explicit teaching of scientific vocabulary through my MPQSL project. I have previously helped organise a St John's Teach Meet and have been involved in staff teaching and learning groups and leading staff teaching and learning briefings. I've also experienced lots of brilliant whole school CPD from engaging speakers such as Jim Smith, Robin Launder and Jeff Barton, to name a few. And we can access lots of further CPD through the challenge partners in the EAT throughout the year. So I'd really like to develop and embed practices a bit more in terms of strengthening relationships with heads of faculty and other heads of year. We're having a recent pastoral restructure as well to try and make the sixth form team a bit more consistent with Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 year groups. So again, just making sure that we are trying to have everything working the same and consistent across the year groups and over the next few years. Also, I think it's important to be kind of thinking about how to develop and think about the learning gaps of students in those year groups, because year 12 and 13 next year won't have had any formal exams. I would really like to look into implementing what I've learned on my MPQSL course about leadership skills, so bringing that into my day job role, and then thinking about possibly like monitoring more with like my tutor system and the tutor team when restrictions ease next year. Eventually, I would like to progress into the senior leadership team at a school, thinking about possibly asking to shadow colleagues in those areas and learning more about those roles in due course. And I'm quite enthusiastic about potentially like a teaching and learning role, because I do like the curriculum side of things in addition to the pastoral side. So I think that's been really positive about my role within the sixth form team. Not only have I had a pastoral role, but I've actually been able to bring in my passion for teaching and learning and the academic side to that role as well.
Hello, my name's Lisa Spokes and I am head of the arts faculty, which I've been doing for about 5 years. I'm also head of the art department, which I've done for about 10 years. And about 3 years ago, there was an opportunity for a secondment to the senior leadership team. And it's something that I wasn't initially looking out for, having only done the head of faculty for 3 years at that stage. But it caught my eye and I thought I'd just take a leap of faith and go for it. I knew I had leadership qualities, and the opportunity doesn't come up very often for secondment. In fact, I don't think there's been a secondment opportunity at St John's. So I thought I'd go for it, and I was successful. And it was just a really exciting time, because I had lots of ideas outside of my subject area that I wanted to have an impact on St John's. So I thought that this opportunity would help me do that. doing the secondment has not only built on my confidence as a leader, I've been able to make an impact across the school, and some of the ideas that I had I've been able to put in place, like changing the school day, which was one of the first things I did as my secondment. I've also introduced a quality assurance system across their faculties, which is now well embedded. And more recently, I've just led the Year 9 options process, which was quite, we had to make some decisions, or I had to make some decisions, which resulted in the Choices event being online because of the pandemic. So we had to change some things, so that was quite exciting. And it was a really good opportunity to work with people outside of my own area. So I've worked with head of Year 9, I've worked with lots of other people, which has been great to build those new relationships. If an assistant vice principal role had come up instead of the secondment, I wouldn't have even thought about going for it. It's not something that I was looking at that point in my career, but the secondment was almost like a taster, and it was something that I thought, oh, I can give this a go, it would be good. And doing it has now given me that insight, experience and confidence to actually know that that is where I want to go for my career. So now I think the next step for me would be to look for those assistant vice principal roles at a senior level. So I hope something like that would come up at St John's, but if it doesn't, then I may have to look further afield. But I think doing the secondment has really given me that professional development and just a fantastic opportunity. And now we have opened the secondment to other members of the St John's, and I hope that they will get a lot out of it like I have. And it would be really great to work with them and perhaps mentor them as well.
We're going to pause it there. There will be an opportunity. Challenge partners are going to share the link to the full video. This next talking head is Tony Hammond, who actually talks about his opportunities the opportunities he's had across the trust, having joined St John's as an NQT. So it's quite a good little case study that if we had more time we would share with you. Hopefully that was useful, just to hear from a number of different voices and their experiences of professional development at St John's. So what we're going to do now is we're going to give you an opportunity, having sort of done a bit of visioning, actually evaluated your current program, is to actually do some action planning. So within your pack of information, you would have received an action planning document. So what we would like you to spend some time doing, you're going to be going into breakout rooms, but obviously appreciate that this is something that you would maybe want to do as an individual exercise, but you've got the opportunity to discuss it. So so you have 10 minutes to consider what are your priorities, what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and actually make a start on your action planning document. So I think Rebecca's going to put you into breakout rooms so that you're able to do that. Okay, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to start just thinking about what actions you might take following this. And if nothing else, hopefully it's given you a bit of time just to, sort of take stock and look at, what maybe you would like to do moving forward. So this is the last part of the session, really, just to give you an opportunity for to share any kind of reflections or ask any questions that you would like to having been with us for the session. Hello, Jane. Yeah.
My issue is the impact that this is having directly on pedagogy across the school. We obviously do quality assurance, but it's not tight enough that it feeds straight back in. So I was wondering if anyone's done that and would give advice on that.
We certainly have sort of themes in the QA document that Lisa mentioned during the video. Has some common themes, so we're looking out for that. And in our sort of learning walk criteria, there are certain things that we particularly are looking for. Not that it's not a tick list of it must include, but we're looking out for it so we can, you know, see the impact. Also, I would say that when people are delivering CPD, there's a sort of thread running through it. So we've had a big focus, you know, on Rosenshine, and people tend to mention it, and we haven't had to enforce that, thankfully, because yes, it's obviously struck a nerve with teachers. But I think, yes, getting that continuity, that thread, that coherence that was mentioned earlier through things, you know, has helped. Is that the sort of thing that you were asking, Jen?
Yeah, I was just wondering how you managed to do it, because I do an evaluation, so I'm doing evaluation at the moment with teachers across the school, the faculty leaders, and also with the deliverers of the courses, and the impact question is always answered poorly. You know, what direct impact does it have? How have you seen it? Have you seen it in department training? Have you seen it in learning walks? And that's always answered clearly. So I'm trying to hone into that and tie it down a little bit further.
And I suppose also the impact is if you're expecting to see things that have been proven to work in research, then the impact should follow if people are doing it. So if you're seeing it, it should be having that impact over time, certainly. And does anyone in other contexts have something that they're doing that they feel is working well, or I suppose something that they tried that didn't work to try it potentially to avoid?
I don't know, Jane, if this is necessarily a whole school thing, but I know we've adapted our CPD request forms. So when staff request CPD, they have to justify the impact. So what is the intended impact and how will they evaluate that afterwards? And that's based upon, I think, students, staff and their own professional practice. So then after they've done their CPD, in order to kind of follow that up and ensure it's cost effective and being implemented, that's something we follow up with staff here at different St John's.
Great, yeah, it's quite a common school name, isn't it? Oh yeah, that seems like absolutely a good other avenue. So people are thinking as they put in those requests, actually, how am I going to spread this? And like you say, getting that value for money is key, isn't it? Any other reflections or problems that you feel that you may come across and we could maybe use our sort of collective brains to problem solve? Or
Sarah, I think one thing is when the right time is to gather the impact, because quite often immediately after it has not had an impact. So you're evaluating the quality of the training rather than anything to do with impact. If it's too long after, it's difficult to maybe remember and attribute it to a particular time. So I think that's a really hard to get right, kind of the timing of when we're asking for impact to be sort of assessed or whatever.
I mean, one thing that we have done is, for example, with Rosenshine, is that it's followed up in faculty meetings. So there's a sort of a discussion in faculty meetings, not immediately afterwards, but it sort of stays. It has a higher profile, and it's sustained. So and that's been quite effective, because it sort of keeps everybody talking about it and thinking about how it can impact their practice.
Yeah, I was thinking of in building into my calendar department training following CPD and like a fortnightly cycle to try and get a rhythm with it going so that they could follow up in faculty training to then follow on, which is something we haven't looked at this year, but I think I will do that next year.
Yeah, I think that's really key, is is allowing departments and teachers to make whatever it is that you're delivering, your key theme, relevant to their subject and their own practice. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea, Jane, and we've certainly found that quite useful when faculties have gone off and taken a key theme and made it their own. But it's important that they understand, I suppose, when they go and make it their own, that in doing so they don't lose the principle of the thing. But yeah, that's good. I think keeping things, not trying to do everything at once. If you can have those key significant themes, then it's easier to weave in. If it's more episodic and run seemingly sort of unconnected, then I think it's more difficult to get that momentum. Anyone else got anything that they want to raise or reflect or problem solve with? Well, sort of one last, reflection from me, I would say, is that having this well planned and thought through CPD has really helped our succession planning, and it's also helped retain our best staff. And I think particularly moving forward, one of the key challenges schools are going to face is in terms of teacher shortage and maintaining their best teachers and keeping them going. And I really think that's had a really big impact on the school being able to do that, and will have that same impact across the trust. So I think that's one key thing in terms of our school moving forward, that it really has helped with. So any last questions, any last observations?
Thanks, Sarah, so much, and Emma, that was an absolutely brilliant session. I've posted the feedback form in the chat, so if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment to complete that, so I can share it with Sarah and Emma afterwards. But I'd just like to say on behalf of everyone, thank you for taking the time this afternoon to lead such a wonderful session, and take care, everybody. Thank you very much.